Greetings, my dear friends, and welcome to another episode of Reading Epic Threads. I'm your host, Patrick Gunnels, joining you from Houston, Texas. And today is May 10th, 2025 at 10:53 a.m. Central Daylight Time. And I'm not going to be reading any pieces in particular today. I'm going to kind of give you my opinion based upon some of my research that I think that this new Pope might be a serious MAGA Pope, because we have seen just a flurry of people on our side and on the other side talking about what a shit lib this guy is going to be. I saw Mike Cernovich refer to him as a shit lib. I saw Steve Bannon refer to him as a progressive. I saw Seth Keshel did a piece saying that he's just the worst and he's going to be an F on immigration. He's going to be a D plus on this other thing, and then possibly a B on keeping the nation. Of course, Seth was circumspect about saying that it's all just speculation, and I agree. I would like to give an alternative viewpoint based upon a few things, and I'm even going to possibly be able to jump into some of the Q drops and everything. But the first thing is, I just want to say that all of this is going to be kind of in the context of the Great Awakening, which I think we all agree at this point isn't a political movement. It is a spiritual movement. In fact, right now we're watching Israel being saved for last, and I want to do that for another episode. But Francis, who I would almost describe as an anti-pope, is gone. April 26th, 2025, he had a funeral. White smoke rose, and we have a new pope. And it's not just any name, it's Pope Leo the 14th. Now that rang a bell immediately with me. So I was driving to go get my lunch, and I got a text from my best friend, and it said, "Congrats on your new pope." He's Protestant. And I said, "Ugh, who is it?" Because I was hoping for a based Congo dude, as far away from Europe as possible. Africa. Maybe we'd have a chance of having a pope who wasn't a dickhead. Okay, that's too strong. I was hoping for a pope who would clean the church up. And I had no idea who it was going to be, but I was hoping for the Congo dude. And so he says, it's an American. I said, oh, that's going to be some dude who rose through the political structure. And then I said, okay, what's his name? Robert Prevost. I've never heard that name before. It's not like I memorized the names of the cardinals. And I said, what's his pope name? He says, Leo the 14th. And everything changed. In a lot of ways, that was all I needed to know. The name Leo it's a name with a deeply storied history since the creation of the church. So I'm gonna just talk about the Leos. Okay, let's just talk about the Leos. The very first Leo, right? Leo the One. So I've got this list that I've had generated here. Pope Leo the First, known as Leo the Great, reigned from AD 440 to 461. He got his name Leo the Great because he persuaded Attila the Hun to turn back from invading Italy and for defining Christ's dual nature at the Council of Chalcedon. Leo II confirmed the acts of the Sixth Ecumenical Council, combating the Monothelite heresy and promoted church music. The third crowned Charlemagne as the Holy Roman Emperor, strengthening the alliance between the papacy and the Frankish kingdom. Very military theme there. Leo IV rebuilt Rome after the Saracen raids and fortified the city, again, very military in name, creating the Leonine city to protect the Vatican. And then we have a couple of them that just are pretty, like Pope Leo V, for example. He was Pope for like a couple of months, I think, and was deposed by who ended up being unpoped, declared as an anti-pope by posterity, and Leo V was reinstated. So there could be a lot there as well. There could be a genuinely good pope who was deposed and removed by criminals. That has happened. Leo VI, short tenure. Leo VII, monastic reform, mediated political disputes in Italy, promoting peace and ecclesiastical order. Leo VIII was initially considered an anti-pope, later recognized as legitimate. Could be another such case of impeached and removed unjustly, marked by imperial influence over the church, the Roman Empire. Imperial. In this case, this is 963 to 965, Pope Leo VIII. Pope Leo IX, leading figure in church reform. His papacy saw the beginning of the East-West schism between the Catholics, between the Roman Catholic Church and the Eastern Orthodox churches. Leo X, 1513 through 1521, was a patron of the arts. And of course, it was the time that Martin Luther nailed his 95 Theses to the wall, etc., etc. Pope Leo XI was known as the Lightning Pope because of his 27-day papacy. Not much there. Pope Leo XII, 1823 to 1829, a conservative pope who enforced strict moral codes and reasserted traditional Catholic doctrines during a time of political upheaval. The name Leo has a lot of meaning. We have 13 Leos preceding Leo XIV, the newly elected pope. Now, what if he just liked the name Leo? Okay. Maybe. But I think it's really, really important to look in history for examples of why popes change their names. Let's talk about a few popes, recent popes, right? So first, we have Pope Pius VIII. So this is a list of popes that I've jumped out at to kind of give you an idea of what we're talking about. So Pius VIII was only pope for 1 year. And he was originally our Cardinal Francesco Castiglione, and he became, Pius VIII. The name pious, meaning pious or devout, has come to symbolize steadfast faith under adversity. By adopting it, Pius VIII paid homage to earlier popes who endured revolutionary upheavals. Notably, Pius VII had suffered under Napoleon, and Pius VIII's choice honored that legacy of piety and perseverance. And, Pius VIII's reign was brief, but his name signaled consistency and orthodox devotion. So it reassured conservatives that he would maintain the religious and moral stances of the Pian popes before him. Time of political unrest, the 1830 revolutions were stirring. The familiar name Pius conveyed stability and fidelity to the old order. And 1831 to 1846, a 15-year papal reign, Gregory XVI chose that name in honor of missionary zeal. So Bartolomeo Capellari chose the name Gregory XVI, explicitly honoring Pope Gregory XV, who had founded the Congregation for the Propagation of the Faith, Propaganda Fidei, as a former prefect of that missionary congregation and a monk from the Camaldolese Order of San Gregorio. Capellari's choice highlighted his commitment to spreading the faith. It linked his papacy to Gregory XV's legacy of worldwide evangelization, and Gregory XV's reign began 1831 amid the 1831 Italian revolutions. And by taking the name of Gregory, a name associated with staunch papal authority, Gregory VII, a great reformer, Gregory the Great was his name, he sent a message of unyielding conservatism and reforming zeal. And it's notable that Gregory XVI firmly opposed liberalizing trends and revolutionary movements, defending the church's prerogatives, much like his namesakes had. His name choice was deliberate. It was a nod to a militant and reformist heritage in the church and was preparing the world for a papacy that was resistant to modernity. Now we'll go to Pius IX, who reigned from 1846 to 1878. So Original Cardinal Giovanni Maria Mastai Ferretti took the name Pius IX in memory of Pius VII, who had supported his vocation and had also served as Bishop of Imola. By invoking the name Pius VII, the Pope who withstood Napoleon and restored the church after exile, Pius IX, so both of these guys, Pius VIII and Pius IX, were honoring Pius VII, who resisted Napoleon. Pius IX aligned himself with a resilient church, but it's also it's pious, but it's also militant. And this personal homage, Pius VII had encouraged the young Mastai despite his epilepsy. So these are mentor people. So Pius VII was a mentor for Pius IX. Gratitude, continuity, all that. So in the context, initially Pius IX was a liberal-minded pope, but his long reign saw dramatic reversals from granting a constitution to proclaiming papal infallibility. The name Pius, 7 popes obviously had it from 1775 to 1958, was a devotion to tradition and piety. Anyway, Pius became associated with anti-revolutionary traditionalist popes. There's a lot in a name. Now, let's talk about Leo the 13th. Obviously, this is a very, very big deal. Leo the 13th, you know what? We'll save Leo the 13th for later. I want to talk about Benedict the 15th, okay? Benedict the 15th reigned from 1914 to 1922. And his born name was Giacomo della Chiesa. He became Benedict the 15th in September 1914. That was just as World War I erupted. Benedict, meaning blessed, invoked the gentle, peacemaking spirit of Saint Benedict and previous Benedictine popes. Unlike the stern Pius, Benedict signaled a new approach. Indeed, Benedict the 15th strove to be a prophet of peace in World War I, much as his namesake, Benedict the 15th would later be remembered by Benedict the 16th, Ratzinger, who was the Pope before Francis. His choice broke the string of Piuses, suggesting a deliberate shift toward reconciliation. So, the last Benedict, the German Pope, Benedict Ratzinger, Joseph Ratzinger, Pope, ex-Ivy, Pope Benedict XIV of the 18th century had been a scholarly, moderate pope. So Benedict XV's name thus reassured war-torn Europe of his humble humanitarian vision. He expended his papacy on diplomacy and aid, living up to the name of a blessed peacemaker that was implied by his name. So in retrospect, Benedict XV's choice was seen as portentous. He became the forgotten Pope of Peace, exactly as his name intended, healing wartime rifts. His reign set an example later cited by Benedict XVI, who lauded Benedict XV as a true and courageous prophet of peace. Then 22 to 1939, we go back to Pius, and we get Pius XI, elected in 1922. His name was Ratti, Achille Ratti, deliberately chose the name Pius XI, returning to the Pius nomenclature after Benedict XV. The choice of the name Pius suggested continuity with the conservative Pius lineage. Pius X and Pius IX, Pius XI likely intended to emulate those predecessors' steadfast leadership amid crisis. Tellingly, the apparitions of Fatima, 1917, had prophesied a worse war during the pontificate of Pius XI if people did not repent, a startling prophetic name drop that made the name Pius itself seem bound up with world events. So Pius XI's era saw rising war, basically. You had the fascism, Nazism, communism, World War II brewing and all that. He leaves around 1939, right before the worst thing in the world happened, World War II. He issued encyclicals against both Nazi and communist ideologies, which one would expect from both a Benedict or a Pius. The Fatima prophecy proved eerily apt. Although Pius XI died just before World War II, Our Lady had explicitly warned of another and more terrible war starting under Pius XI. Many Catholics later saw his name choice as part of a divine timeline, underscoring the almost fateful significance of papal names in prophecy and history. All right, so let's go forward to John Paul I, 1978. So John Paul I, Albino Luciani, pioneered the first double papal name, John Paul I, explicitly to honor his two immediate predecessors, John the 23rd and Paul VI. To the delight of the assembly, Luciani chose the name John Paul I, John for John the 23rd and Paul for Paul VI, assuring everyone would follow in the spirit of those popes. Very important. The name is very meaningful. Reform and humility. By adopting a composite name, never used before, the first new papal name in 1100 years, since Pope Lando in 913, John Paul I indicated a papacy of synthesis, not novelty for its own sake. Well, you could argue that. The name John Paul telegraphed commitment to Vatican II reforms. Vatican II. That's the thing that created the Sedevacantists, of whom I am one. So, going back to 1958, John the 23rd, now we have to go back to him. Angelo Roncalli made history by choosing the name John the 23rd, became Pope in 1958, a name avoided for centuries. The last legitimate Pope John was in 1415. He broke the long chain of Piuses, deliberately signaling a new era of openness. John the 23rd himself explained his reasons in detail. I choose John because it is the name of my father, dear to me because it is the name of the humble parish church where I was baptized, and the solemn name of numberless cathedrals, including our own Basilica, St. John Lateran. He noted 22 valid Johns had come before and humbly said, we have preferred to hide the smallness of our name behind this magnificent succession of Roman popes by invoking St. John the Baptist, precursor of Christ, and St. John the Evangelist, apostle of love. He signaled a mission of renewal. Love one another. This is the grand precept of Christ. The name John, common and beloved, conveyed pastoral simplicity and a bridging of divides. So it was Roncalli's way to throw open the windows of the church, as he indeed soon did by convening Vatican II. Observers noted that John the 23rd, originally seen as a likely caretaker, instead had a colossal impact on the church, much like the surprise of a John who exceeded expectations. By taking the name John, he linked himself to popes who were conciliatory and forward-looking. In prophecy circles, some pointed out that St. Malachi's motto for John the 23rd as Pastor et Nauta, pastor and sailor, fitting for a former patriarch of Venice. Such coincidences aside, John the 23rd's choice was clearly a deliberate signal of intent. A papacy of aggiornamento, which means updating, and outreach, rooted in the loving witness of the saints, John. John Paul II, 1978 to 2005. So it's important to note, John Paul I was Pope for a year. So anyway, first Polish Pope John Paul II, he chose the name John Paul II to signal continuity with John Paul I's agenda, which was to continue Vatican II, okay? In becoming John Paul II, the first non-Italian Pope in 455 years, tied himself to his predecessor's memory rather than choosing a distinctly Polish or new saint's name. This was understood as a pledge to continue his predecessor's work. Every single one of these names is chosen with great care. Now, conservatives love John Paul II, but John Paul II did continue Vatican II, which was a massive departure from so much that the church held dear for centuries, millennia. So, prophetic and symbolic notes for John Paul II. John Paul II's life seemed laced with symbolism tied to his name. He had a profound devotion to the Virgin Mary, taking the motto Totus Tuus. And in 1981, he survived an assassination attempt on May 13th, the feast of Our Lady of Fatima. He later recognized that date's significance, noting it was the anniversary of Mary's first Fatima apparition. He credited a mother's hand, Our Lady, with guiding the bullet and saving his life. And afterward, he fulfilled the Fatima request by consecrating the world to Mary. These events cemented the view of many Catholics that John Paul II was part of a prophetic narrative. In the prophecy of St. Malachi, his motto was De labore solis, from the labor of the sun, or of the eclipse of the sun. Strikingly, solar eclipses occurred on the day of his birth and the day of his funeral, a coincidence that proponents found deeply meaningful. Such phenomena encouraged apocalyptic interpretations of John Paul II's role. Some saw him as the spark from Poland, foretold by Faustina Kowalska, to prepare the world for Christ's mercy. By choosing the name John Paul II, I can't pronounce his last name to save my life, so I'm just going to say Wojtyla, intentionally positioned himself as the heir to a reformist yet orthodox legacy. But fate and faith also wove that name into the fabric of 20th century prophecy and global transformation, the fall of communism, the Jubilee of 2000, etc. The deliberate continuity in his name became a testament to the continuity of the church's vision through the turbulent late 20th century. Now, Benedict XVI, 2005 to 2013, okay, 8-year Pope reign. He resigned. So Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger announced that he would be Pope Benedict XVI, explicitly linking him to Benedict XV, the venerated pontiff, who was a true and courageous prophet of peace during World War I. Benedict XV had tirelessly worked to end World War I and heal its wounds. By invoking him, Ratzinger signaled a commitment to reconciliation in a world still torn by conflict. Remember, 2005, he chooses this name. Additionally, the name Benedict also evokes Saint Benedict of Nursia, co-patron of Europe, founder of Western monasticism. Ratzinger, a German, emphasized how Saint Benedict spread Christianity across Europe and became a fundamental reference point for the unity of Europe. Thus, Benedict XVI's name choice declared his papal program, peacemaking and a reawakening of Europe's Christian roots. Scholarly and spiritual signal, the name Benedict, meaning blessed or blessed, carried connotations of both gentility, gentleness, and learned holiness. Benedict XVI, known as a theologian, indeed pursued a gentle but firm reassertion of Catholic tradition, issuing the Summorum Pontificum, widening use of the Latin Mass, for example, while trying to bridge gaps, reconciling the Society of St. Pius X, speaking to Muslims at Regensburg to seek understanding. The name distanced him from the charismatic, globe-trotting image of St. John Paul II, suggesting instead a more reflective monastic tone. It was a signal of intent to fortify the church from within through prayer, study, and unity, much as St. Benedict did after the fall of Rome. Now, let's move to Francis. 2013 to a few days ago, to 20 days ago. Never before had there been any Pope Francis anywhere since the beginning, since Christ. First Pope to take the name of St. Francis of Assisi. Now, breaking new ground. That sends a powerful message. So when he was elected, as votes were being counted, Cardinal Claudio Humes whispered to him, "Don't forget about the poor." And that word entered here, Francis recounted, touching his heart. He thought of St. Francis, the man of poverty, the man of peace, the man who loves and protects creation. This is how the name came to me in my heart, Francis of Assisi. He explained by choosing Francis, he signaled a radical shift. And that definitely happened. To prioritizing humility, simplicity, and care for the marginalized, he famously declared, how much I would like a poor church for the poor. He definitely made the church poorer, didn't he? The name Francis immediately invoked the saint who renounced wealth, embraced lepers, even tamed a wolf, a vivid symbol of peacemaking. In taking this name, Pope Francis telegraphed his vision of a pastoral down-to-earth papacy focused on poverty, peace, and the environment. Indeed. He has emphasized outreach to those on the peripheries, the poor, migrants, prisoners, marginalized, and issued Laudato Si on ecology, all in line with St. Francis's spirit, blah, blah, blah. That's according to PBS. The choice also subtly honored Francis Xavier, a great Jesuit missionary reflecting Bergoglio's Jesuit identity, the only Jesuit pope, and global missionary outlook, though he clarified that St. Francis of Assisi was the primary reason. The resonance with Francis Xavier underscores a call to evangelism. Well, let's talk about Pope Leo the 13th. Pope Leo the 13th was elected pope in 1878. He served until 1903. Okay, long reign, 25-year papacy. And his choice was a tribute to Leo XII, who, after Pius IX's death, Leo XIII, Vincenzo Giacchino Pecci, I'm trying these Italian names as best I can, broke with the immediate past by choosing the name Leo XIII in memory of Leo XII. He admired Leo XII for that pope's interest in education, conciliatory attitude to governments, and a desire for Christian unity. By reviving the name Leo, a name unused since 1829, Pecci indicated a fresh start. It also hearkened to Leo the Great's courageous leadership, implying this new pope would boldly engage the world. Leo XIII indeed brought a new spirit to the papacy. The name Leo symbolized strength, tempered by wisdom. He faced a modernizing world, the rise of socialism, scientific progress, and responded with groundbreaking social teaching. Rerum Novarum, 1891, choosing the name Leo telegraphed a commitment to confront modernity with great courage, as Leo the Great confronted Attila while seeking reconciliation where possible. The name choice was a deliberate signal of intent, a papacy of intellectual engagement and diplomacy after Pius IX's confrontations. So, what's in a name? An assload. And I'm stoked as hell. So, Leo the 14th. Leo means lion. Courage, kingship. Lion of Judah, which signals boldness in the papacy. Roaring in the papacy. The number 14 even feels symbolic, which is a doubling of the sacred number 7. He's the first American pope. Politically, this is huge. He is Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost of Chicago. I don't even have to elaborate on the incredible importance of that. When Donald Trump posts a picture of himself as Pope, he telegraphed it. Do you think that those cardinals would have been influenced by Donald Trump if they weren't truly influenced by Donald Trump? I have thoughts on that. I would only be speculating, though. So we'll leave that up to you, the audience, to think about. But choosing a name like Leo automatically signals a big shakeup. We have not had a Pope Leo in 100 years, 120 years. And Pope Leo the 13th, you know what he was known for? Championing workers' rights, waging spiritual war. Mainstream observers note that his name choice is a deliberate signal. By choosing, this is from Reuters, by picking the name Leo the 14th, he shows he's committed to the social teaching of the church. Ooh, is that what it is? Because we're going to get to the mainstream media talking about it. And that's said by one Jesuit commentator. In other words, the new pope is aligning himself with Leo the 13th's legacy from day one. I suspect a deeper significance. Leo the 14th is not about social issues. It's about spiritual battle. By choosing the name Leo right now, it feels like a wink from God. It's a hint. It's foreshadowing that the church is about to confront with courage the darkness within and without. The lion has returned to Rome for a reason. All right, so here's some parallels to Pope Leo XIII. History of spiritual warfare. So going back to Pope Leo XIII, we're trying to unlock why he would pick that name, such a provocative name. So we're going to start with the vision. Leo XIII reigned in a time of great upheaval. He was a spiritual warrior. And there is a legend that in 1884, Leo XIII had a terrifying vision during Mass of Satan unleashing hell upon the church. It's from saintbenedict.com. He turned pale and shaken. In response, he penned the prayer to St. Michael, 1886, which is a bold exorcism prayer, begging the Archangel Michael to defend us in battle against wickedness and snares of the devil. Obviously, if you watch this show more than once, you know this prayer pretty well. Leo XIII ordered that prayer to be recited after every low mass worldwide. That's taking the fight to the enemy. It's a direct response to the vision of demonic forces gathering to attack the church. For decades, Catholics armored up with this prayer until it was discontinued in the 1960s amid Vatican II. By invoking the name Leo, our new pope is hearkening back to that militant spirituality. Leo XIII faced down the devil in his era. Leo XIV arrives in ours just when the church again grapples with evil within. It feels like historical rhyme. We talk about the Great Awakening, right? Which is all about exposing corruption and demonic influence at all levels. We've talked about it's not a political movement. It's a spiritual movement. And who on earth could be better to lead the spiritual counterattack than a pope named after the one who famously battled Satan? Let me get you a picture here. That is St. Michael defeating the dragon right there in front of you. It is hard to mistake the importance of it. Leo XIV, it just feels like a reintroduction of that fighting spirit. So imagine, just for fun, right? Imagine if he urges the faithful to start praying the St. Michael prayer again, which would be a return to Leo XIII's arsenal. Now, my church ends with the St. Michael prayer, but not everyone does. Doing that would signal that the church is gearing up, donning the armor of God. What does the armor of God remind you of? Well, that's from Ephesians, but it's quoted by Q. So let's talk about the Q drops, right? Q drops out the yin yang on this topic. Dark to light. So those of us following Q, and I don't think I need to tell you who Q is. We know that the Vatican has been in the crosshairs of Q for years. Q, all about the storm that's coming, and the church is going to be part of that storm, right? Well, it looks as if that storm is here. So first of all, look to Twitter because it's coming. Q drop number 997 of April 3rd, 2018. And Anon asks, P equals Pope. Q responds, Pope, in brackets, will be having a terrible May. Those who backed him will be pushed into the light. Dark to light. Truth. Q. Pope will have a terrible May. It's early 2018. Q predicted the future. The Pope facing turmoil, hidden players, May 2025. Is this the fulfillment? Pope Francis died at the end of April. May brought a conclave that is reshaping the church. And don't forget the timing. Pope, like this, 30 days later, bam, done in 30. 17 days later, we get Pope Leo XIV. 17, Q. You don't have to be like deeply autistic to notice those numbers. I mean, it helps. Dark to light. Hidden darkness will be dragged into the light. We're watching exactly that. Long buried church scandals. Have you followed the Root Bitch series? Vatican 1, parts 1 through 5. Part 6 is coming, guys. Root Bitch is working on it. Seriously, the old guard passes, and who's going to usher that in? It would, of course, be a Leo. Q drop, number 3,709 of December 17th, 2019. Let me share that. A tweet, the Jerusalem Post, Vatican ambassador to France resigns after molestation allegations. Dark to light, those you are taught to trust most. Q. When does a church become a playground? When does a church become a business? When does a church become political? When does a church become corrupt? When does a church become willfully blind? When does a church become controlled? Q was challenging us to wake up to the corruption in religious institutions. Sounds like a commentary on the pre-Leo XIV era. So these questions hit home because many of us have watched horrified as the church under Francis, the only pope in forever to choose a new name never chosen by any other pope. When Francis flirted with politics, when Francis went apeshit, he started engaging in open heresy and even apostasy. We don't need to get into it. Archbishop Vigano has gone through the heresies and apostasies of Pope Francis. Bergoglio. Q was signaling the church had lost its spiritual purity at the highest levels. Now let's look at Q drop number 2894 of February 25th, 2019. First, we have a graphic posting by Q. The posting is by Q of the original Q drop being 2590, which is a link to the Daily Mail. Another link to theage.com.au, a link to perthnow.com.au, and then Cardinal Pell, in brackets, dark to light, Q, and then a link to CNN, Cardinal George Pell, Vatican conviction, a link to the BBC, Australia, abuse, Vatican Treasurer Pell found guilty of abusing 2 choir boys 22 years ago. Q says, many more to come. Dark to light, Q. Q's focus on the Vatican and on the Catholic Church is unmistakable. Absolutely unmistakable. And many more to come, right? And we've seen financial trials. We've seen reports, McCarrick, the dramatic change of leadership in Rome. The storm. So let's just get to the storm. Massive reckoning. Evil elites are exposed, justice is served, what we're all waiting for. Many assumed it was political. DC, the deep state, the cabal. Q has repeatedly included the Vatican in that web of corruption, tying banks in, Vatican banks. The storm has always been, it's always been worldwide, right? So Pope Francis is gone. A new pope is promising renewal. And it feels to me, at least, like an aspect of the storm is underway. The plan is unfolding on all fronts. The timing lines up, remarkably lines up, with drops from exactly 7 years ago as if orchestrated. May 2025 would be a turning point for the church. It seems like Q knew And, dark to light means all the darkness hidden in the Vatican, the cover-ups, the shady deals are going to be revealed and purged. We're witnessing dark to light happen. New beginning under a lion of a pope, Leo XIV. So let's really kind of dig in from what we're coming out of, right? The Francis era is a darkness before the dawn, if you want. Many Catholics, definitely more Catholics than me, I was concerned about the church. You know something? I didn't return to my faith until 2019. And then I had to revisit everything. And I eventually came back to the Catholic Church. But the fact is that during the Pope Francis's era, it was just scandal after scandal. There's clergy abuse crises, right? Financial corruption, embezzlement, nailing cardinals to the wall for embezzlement. There's a crazy London property deal that we've covered in the Vatican series on this channel from Root Bitch. Cardinal Pell, well, he got entangled, as you can just see. Pope Francis was pandering to China. He made a secret deal on Chinese bishops. Mike Pompeo publicly warned the Vatican about partnering with Beijing, and Francis's circle brushed it off. So why was Pope Francis cozying up to the Chinese Communist Party, which is just obviously a regime hostile to all religion, and particularly the church because of its power? And I think that there's an important cue drop for that as well. Cue drop number 999 of April 3rd, 2018. The chair serves the master, who is the master. P equals C, Q. Why is Epstein spending $29 million to bury the tunnels underneath his temple on Epstein Island? Problem: phones were allowed in. These people are stupid. Q. The chair serves the master. P equals C. Some interpreted that as Pope equals controlled by China or by communism. The deal certainly made it look that way. Under Francis, the Vatican pushed globalist themes: climate change, open borders, economic reset, sounding more like the UN than the gospel. The church's spiritual mission was eclipsed by worldly politics. Spiritual confusion. We even saw pagan idols on display in the Vatican. Remember the Pachamama controversy of 2019? The traditional Latin Mass was restricted, while bizarre modern trends were welcomed. Many believers whispered that evil had entered the highest sanctuary. All this was the prelude to now. So we'll call it the pre-Leo XIV era, a time of spiritual darkness and infiltration. Some even referenced the ancient prophecy of St. Malachi, which seemed to imply that the last pope would witness Rome's judgment. People wondered, was Francis that final pope? It felt really apocalyptic at times. It's possible that the prophecy was pointing to a purification, a darkness before a great dawn. Francis died during these unresolved crises. His death, he was 88 after a very, very sudden decline, although, 88 is still 88. Very swift conclave, and it all felt fast. It felt like we were being bailed out. Archbishop Vigano wrote in The Children of Darkness, he called corrupt churchmen, and he says they've been exposed enough that even faithful Catholics and outsiders are demanding change. And I think it's safe to say that the stage was set for something drastic. Maybe, just maybe, for a lion to emerge. Now, let's talk about another lion, Donald Trump. The very moment the church was in mourning and preparing to choose Leo XIV, Donald Trump made a splash with a meme. That's right. Donald J. Trump on Truth Social. This speaks for itself, of course. He shared that on May 2nd, just days after attending Pope Francis's funeral. He even said at a briefing, he said, "I'd like to be Pope. That'd be my number one choice," before assuring everyone he was joking. Classic freaking Trump, trolling the media, having fun, and his team blasted it out. And boy, did it get people talking. Catholic leaders freaking went like you wouldn't even believe. They accused him mocking Catholics. Bill Kristol, oh my God, can't even get just anyway. You know how I feel like Bill Kristol. New York State Catholic Conference scolded, "There is nothing clever or funny about this image, Mr. President. We just buried our beloved Pope Francis. Do not mock us." Former Italian Prime Minister Matteo Renzi fumed that Trump was a clown, insulting sacred institutions. The narrative for a few days was that Trump disrespects Catholic mourning. And of course, Trump's response was, "It's fine. Have to have a little fun, don't I?" he said with a grin. And many people, including plenty of Catholics, found it hilarious. One columnist noted that folks who scream blasphemy at a meme often have no problem when faith is truly abused by leaders. There was a sense of satire revealing truth. So why bring this up? Because it fits the kind of crazy, symbolic, I guess you could say, prophetic nature of this whole thing. We have Trump, who is arguably the central figure of the Great Awakening, portraying himself as the Pope right before a new Pope is being chosen. It was like he was winking at us. The worldly and spiritual battles are linked. That's what this says to me. That's what this meme says to me. He's fought the political deep state, and now he's wearing the attire of someone who's going to fight the religious deep state, or as Archbishop Vigano calls it, the deep church. Was it a troll, or was it a nod that big changes were coming to the Vatican? You remember Q's phrase, "Symbolism will be their downfall." In this case, symbolism was not used by the enemy. It was used by Trump himself. And that symbolism sent a message. He inserted himself into the Pope narrative. Maybe he was foreshadowing an alliance between patriots and the Catholic Church. Maybe he was just trolling. Maybe he was having a laugh. Maybe he thought it was funny to piss off Bill Kristol or freak out the globalists. Either way, that meme became a part of the story. It kept the spotlight on Rome, and it kept us asking, what's really happening at the Vatican? Interestingly, once Robert Prevost, Pope Leo XIV, was elected, Trump showed respect. His press secretary noted that he flew to Rome to pay respects to Francis and supports religious liberty. The meme, that was over, and we're left with the impression that even Trump recognizes the spiritual importance of this battle. In the end, it wasn't mockery. It was prophecy mixed with humor. And of course, the conclave delivered a Pope name that signals the very fight that Trump and Q are invested in, the fight against evil from dark to light. So let's talk about the Bible. This is spiritual warfare. It's not geopolitics alone. It's not church politics alone. It's biblical. So if you're feeling like the story is scriptural and it's coming to life, your feeling is accurate. Armor of God, the Apostle Paul, Ephesians 6. These words hit me harder now than ever. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against spiritual wickedness in high places. High places like, say, DC, the halls of the Vatican. The same battle is raging in both arenas. It's a battle between good and evil. God and the devil, the faithful, that's us, must suit up in truth, righteousness, faith, the word of God, prayer, darkness to light. It's a biblical theme. The phrase dark to light echoes the Bible, John 1:5. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. Nothing is hidden that will not be made manifest, Luke 8:17. We're witnessing hidden things being revealed. It's like an unveiling. Greek word, apocalypsis. Apocalypse in the true sense. The death of an old pope, the election of a new one named Leo, Lion, feels like God saying, hey, watch this. I'm doing a new thing. Parallels to David v. Goliath. Now just think of the ragtag David representing the little guy, the truth community, slaying the evil Goliath, the Nephilim, the wicked giant of corruption. Today, David is armed with faith and a sling of digital stones, truth bombs, the internet. Goliath, the corrupt establishment in both state and church, is falling. It's toppling. David took down the giant against all odds. We're seeing the exact same thing happen in the spiritual realm on this earth. Institutions that seemed absolutely untouchable, absolutely invincible, that they could do anything they want, they're falling right in front of us. And the weapons being used to topple them are truth and justice. God wins is a Q slogan. It's also explicitly scriptural. I did, as a show, just a simple reading of the Good News Bible translation of the Revelation of St. John the Divine, the book of Revelation. And it is the tale of God's final victory. In the end, God triumphs over evil. When Leo XIV stepped onto that balcony for the first time, he said, God loves us, God loves everyone, and evil will not prevail. We are in the hands of God. Evil will not prevail. I could have come straight from the Bible or from a Q drop. It's as if God himself is assuring us through these events, I have not abandoned my church. I have not abandoned my world. And throughout all of this, one thing has been constant. It's been the power of prayer, the movement behind the whole Great Awakening. It's filled with patriots who pray and prayerful Christians. I've, of course, been praying St. Michael's prayer. I've been praying to Jesus Christ. And St. Michael's prayer is asking the Archangel Michael to defend us in battle. I think there's a strong indication by this that we are seeing those prayers bearing fruit. So in this case, we definitely need to not back off. We need to intensify our prayer. The forces of darkness are up against the ropes. I think they're reeling, of course. I think they've had the wind knocked out of them. They're not destroyed. So I say that we pray without ceasing. Pray every day, all the time. Pray for Pope Leo XIV. Pray for pray for President Trump. Pray for every single frontline warrior in this battle. I mean, think of the biblical heroes. You got Moses, who stood up to the tyrant Pharaoh. He used God's power. And today we call on the power of God to stand up to the wicked people in high places. There's just thousands of examples of such in the Bible, but the simple message is, if God is for us, who can be against us? It's Romans 8:31. The Great Awakening is very much a great revival too, a return of hearts to God and eyes to heaven as lies crumble on earth. Now I'm going to quickly pivot to an article that my friend Seth Keshel cited as an indication that we've got a shit lib for a pope. I want you to look at this. Okay, let's take a look at this article right here. It's from The Independent. And the headline is, Pope Leo openly criticized Trump administration's anti-immigration stance. All right, so just let that sink in, what it says. This is The Independent. Pope Leo openly criticized Trump administration's anti-immigration stance. It's a big claim, and most people just read headlines. Okay, let's read the article. Pope Leo has repeatedly criticized both Donald Trump and J.D. Vance for their anti-immigration stances. That's Friday, the 9th of May, 2025, by Tom Watling. Donald Trump and his administration may have praised the appointment of the first American pontiff, but Pope Leo has been openly critical of the government's anti-immigration stance. In the run-up to his election on Thursday as the 267th Pope, the then Cardinal Robert Prevost criticized U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance on his social media platform on X. In early February, Leo shared an article from a Catholic publication with the headline, J.D. Vance is wrong. Jesus doesn't ask us to rank our love for others. So, to make very, very clear, this entire article has been written because Cardinal Prevost retweeted something saying that Jesus doesn't ask us to rank our love for others. Days earlier, Mr. Vance had cited a Christian tenet about prioritizing care for those around us as justification for the Trump administration's anti-immigration stance. In a Fox News interview, Vance, referenced the Christian tenet that you love your family, then you love your neighbor, then you love your community, then you love your fellow citizens, and after that, prioritize the rest of the world. Pope Leo, who had a long career in missionary work in South America, working for nearly 15 years in Peru until 1998, has been an outspoken advocate of pastoral work, caring for the poor. His brother John Prevost said the new pope is likely to follow in the footsteps of the late Francis in advocating for continued care for the poor and marginalized. The brother added that Leo's papacy is likely, quote, not going to be real far left, and he's not going to be real far right. He said it will be kind of right down the middle. Okay, so thanks for your opinion, Cardinal's brother. Leo's final post as a cardinal was a recirculation on April 14th of a post by church chronicler Rocco Palmo about Trump's Oval Office meeting with El Salvador President Nayib Bukele. Bukele said it was preposterous for his country to bring a Maryland man who was wrongly deported there in March back to the U.S. despite a Supreme Court ruling, calling on the administration to facilitate Kilmar Abrego Garcia's return. Pope Leo, then Cardinal Prevost, reposted Palmo's link to an article by Washington-era Bishop Evelio Menjivar, who was born in El Salvador, asking, do you not see the suffering? Is your conscience not disturbed? How can you stay quiet? Again, it's a frickin' retweet. Before Mr. Trump's first bid for the presidency, Leo also implicitly criticized. So implicitly. Let's just go back up. Okay, so we got two retweets and then something that's implicit. Pope Leo openly criticized. Okay. And this is what they're hanging their hat on, guys. As Mr. Trump's campaign ramped up in early 2015, in July 2015, Leo posted to X a Washington Post op-ed by Cardinal Timothy Dolan, the Archbishop of New York, with the headline, Why Donald Trump's anti-immigrant rhetoric is so problematic. After Trump's first election in 2016, Leo reposted, we've got retweets here, guys, that's it, a homily in which, homily for you Protestants just means sermon, in which Los Angeles Archbishop Jose Gomez, characterizing the fear among many, including school children who, quote, think the government's going to come and deport their parents any day now, fingers crossed, said that America is better than this. Okay, he reposted a homily who said that America is better than this. Okay. I wonder if the author read the homily. Okay, let's move on. In September 2017, months into Trump's first term, Leo recirculated a post by author activist Sister Helen Prejean saying she stands with the hashtag Dreamers and all people who are working toward an immigration system that is fair, just, and moral. A repost. They just used the word recirculated, he retweeted it. He wants an immigration policy that is fair, just, and moral. He also reposted Church chronicler Rocco Palmo's piece with the teaser saying Trump's bad hombres line fuels racism and nativism. Cali bishops send preemptive blast on DACA repeal. While Mr. Trump and Mr. Vance have celebrated the election of Pope Leo, the more steeled elements of the Make America Great Again movement have been critical. He is anti-Trump, anti-MAGA, pro-open borders, and total Marxist like Pope Francis. Far-right activist Laura Loomer wrote on X. And there's all this shit. Okay. They're hanging their hat on that. They're hanging their hat on some retweets. What do we have, though? We have a pope who is American after Trump donned the Pope hat in a meme. We have a lifelong registered Republican who has voted repeatedly in Republican primaries. We have a pope who has openly, and this time it was open, distanced himself from the LGBTQ movement. We have a pope who said, we need environmental, we need to take care of the environment, and nobody disagrees with that. He never jumped on the climate change bandwagon. He just made generic statements. He prayed for George Floyd's soul, which literally everybody did. And then he chooses the name Leo the 14th, which is the most significant thing he could possibly ever have done. And he is elected, made Pope, on the feast of the victory of St. Michael. I don't feel like this is sunk into normie world nearly enough. Once again, we Q-tards get it. We're so far ahead of everything. Support what I do here. I have something called Rainfall. It is an amazing healing lotion based on aloe, based on food-grade plant oils. Some of these plant oils you'll never find in anything else. There's amaranth oil in this in large quantities. There's hemp seed oil, which contains chlorophyll. There are things for your skin in this you're not going to find anywhere else. Get it at tulipblooms.shop. Use promo code Shapiro for 10% off, because I'm a shill, and I like to shill with the name Shapiro. Go to tulipblooms.shop, get the best lotion the world has ever known. If you get this before Monday at midnight, a free 2-ounce bottle of Rainfall will come with it. 8 ounces, 2 ounces. Add the 2-ounce bottle, and it'll automatically add it for free. Now, it won't automatically add it. It'll automatically make it free. It'll drop it down to 0. Not to mention the fact that 15% off, or is that? No, that's the castor blend that's 15% off. So castor blend, it's castor oil, amaranth oil, sea buckthorn fruit oil, vitamin E oil. This is amazing. This makes it look like I have Botox. Go to tulipblooms.shop. Go to epicminerals.net. Get the Zeolite Extra Spray. It detoxes you from heavy metals, detoxes you from microplastics. Spray it in your mouth. Formulation right now tastes pretty much like water. Get it now. Tulipblooms.shop, epicminerals.net, tulipblooms.shop, epicminerals.net. Both cases. Promo code Shapiro for 10% off. I'm more excited now than I've ever been in my entire life. I think you should be too. And now let us pray in honor of Pope Leo XIV and in honor of Pope Leo XIII, who wrote this prayer. I will do the original long version of the St. Michael prayer. O glorious Archangel St. Michael, Prince of the heavenly host, be our defense in the terrible warfare which we carry on against principalities and powers, against the rulers of this world of darkness, spirits of evil. Come to the aid of man, whom God created, immortal, made in his own image and likeness, and redeemed at a great price from the tyranny of the devil. Fight this day the battle of the Lord, together with the holy angels, as already thou hast fought the leader of the proud angels, Lucifer, and his apostate host, who were powerless to resist thee, nor was there place for them any longer in heaven. That cruel, that ancient serpent who is called the devil or Satan, who seduces the whole world, was cast into the abyss with his angels. Behold, this primeval enemy and slayer of men has taken courage. Transformed into an angel of light, he wanders about with all the multitude of wicked spirits, invading the earth in order to blot out the name of God and of his Christ, to seize upon, slay, and cast into eternal perdition souls destined for the crown of eternal glory. This wicked dragon pours out, as a most impure flood, the venom of his malice on men of depraved mind and corrupt heart, the spirit of lying, of impiety, of blasphemy, and the pestilent breath of impurity and of every vice and iniquity. These most crafty enemies have filled and inebriated with gall and bitterness the church, the spouse of the immaculate Lamb, and have laid impious hands on her most sacred possessions. In the holy place itself, where has been set up the see of the most holy Peter and the chair of truth for the light of the world, they have raised the throne of their abominable impiety with the iniquitous design that when the pastor has been struck, the sheep may be scattered. Arise then, O invincible prince. Bring help against the attacks of the lost spirits to the people of God, and give them the victory. They venerate thee as their protector and patron. In the Holy Church glories as her defense against the malicious power of hell. To thee has God entrusted the souls of men to be established in heavenly beatitude. Oh, pray to the God of peace that he may put Satan under our feet, so far conquered that he may no longer be able to hold men in captivity and harm the church. Offer our prayers in the sight of the Most High, so that they may quickly conciliate the mercies of the Lord, and beating down the dragon, the ancient serpent, who is the devil and Satan, do thou again make him captive in the abyss, that he may no longer seduce the nations. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you all for being here today. I love you all, and I'll see you next time.